Hey guys, welcome to SheKnowsArsenal. My name is Jessica and I'm your host, and you can follow me on Twitter at itsjustino. Yes, I'm wearing my grandma cardigan. You know why? Because I feel like it. Hey. But hey guys, welcome to the show. Arsenal transfer news. Um, we're going to start doing these more often because it's transfer season. It's time to start talking about who could potentially come in the January transfer window. In the past, this window has not really been that exciting for Arsenal. Um, Usually we get some loanee that never really plays. The only time we've really had like a exciting January transfer window is when Aubameyang came in maybe 3 years ago. Um, but in the situation that we're in at the moment, I cannot imagine that the club is not thinking about maybe moving one of these big purchases that we know they're planning on bringing in the summer, bringing it forward. And it's not really that surprising that after such a bad loss against Everton and so much of the conversation around Aubameyang and Lacazette being so out there in the media that like right after that game were linked to strikers in particular. Um, it's very good timing for stuff like this, and I think even though we all kind of know that we need a striker, we need a midfielder, and maybe some other things as well, we still can't look past the fact that, like, Mikel Arteta is under some pressure, and so, that's definitely still in the back of my mind now, even days later after the Everton game. I just still feel like he needs to get more out of the group that he has and cannot wait until we get the perfect team to start getting this style of play going, if that makes sense. But nevertheless, any manager that comes into Arsenal Football Club, whether it's Mikel Arteta or somebody else, is going to want to freshen up the front line, is going to want to freshen up or finish the midfield. So these are conversations that we need to have regardless of the manager. Make sure you guys like the video, subscribe to the channel. And I do have a community poll going on now. What do you think is more important in January? I think if you've been an Arsenal fan for long enough, you know that we're not going to address everything in one window. We're not going to get a striker and a midfielder. We'll probably just get one or the other. So that's definitely something that we need to be realistic about. And so I asked you guys which one is more important, midfield or striker. And I'm going to go ahead and check the community poll now and see where we are at. So right now, it's 63% says a striker and 35% says midfielder. So we're leaning towards striker. So we'll go ahead and talk about that first. Let's go with this. Okay, so this is from Charles Watts, who's the Arsenal correspondent at Goal. And he basically wrote about some of the options that Arsenal are apparently looking at for the striker position. And the weird thing about it is that none of the strikers are really similar. They're all kind of different. So it makes me a little bit leery about what we're trying to do because I would imagine that most of the strikers would have some of the same qualities, and some do, and some are just really, really different. So it's interesting, and it may be um, because Lacazette and Aubameyang are going to be leaving. So maybe we are looking for two. That's not for me. That's not out of the realm of possibility. Maybe somebody a little bit more Lacazette like, and then somebody a little bit more Aubameyang like. So that might be why the options look a little bit different. But Charles basically was saying that the Gunners captain, Aubameyang, is struggling for goals. Shocker. Um, and we spent 145 million last summer to bring in six new faces. But obviously, we still need some more work. Ideally, Mikel Arteta, the technical director, Adu, and the technical director, Adu, would have done more with a new striker high on their wish list. But with Aubameyang and Lacazette still at the club, it was decided that it was financially not viable to bring in another frontman when there was two older strikers available still there. Um, these are some quotes I think from Adu, and then for Arsenal, the key will now be the next step in the squad overhaul with bringing in a new striker at the top of the agenda, and we have only scored 17 goals. Our chance creation is abysmal. We know Aubameyang is on 4 goals. I mean, we are dire up front. Um, Arteta said to put the ball in the back of the net or not can be the difference of millimeters or by a second. Um, Aubameyang has the capacity and hasn't lost the capacity, so he still backs Aubameyang to score goals. I think the bigger issue there is that we don't play to Aubameyang's strengths. We don't create enough chances. The one chance that he would usually miss is the only chance that he's getting now, and he's missing it. Um, Arsenal have been spoken about as having an interest in Everton frontman Dominic Calvert-Lewin, and he missed out due to injury. The 24-year-old fits the profile of the type of player Arteta and Adu want to bring in, and has recently switched agents, with many believing that he's gearing up for the next move, having spent the last 5 years in Merseyside. And while Everton would not want to lose their main goal threat, the need to bring in money to invest in their squad could force the Toffees into doing business this summer. So we all know about Dominic Calvert-Lewin. We kind of know that that is somebody that we've been linked with for a couple of months now, and I would imagine that he's ready to make a move. Hopefully, Arsenal and Everton do not look are nowhere near each other at the end of the season. I just feel like we need to look like a real step up. But the thing about it is that I don't see Dominic Calvert-Lewin leaving the Premier League. And if you look at all of the other teams that are in the league that are above us, Manchester United doesn't really need a striker. We know Spurs are heavily interested in Dusan Vlahevich, and they also have Harry Kane. Um, Liverpool don't really play with this type of striker, and I don't think they'd be interested in Dominic Calvert-Lewin. Same with Man City, same with Chelsea. So if you're looking kind of up the ladder and you want to go to a team that is a big club, can offer you good wages, hopefully competitive football, and is a step up from Everton, we're pretty much the one stop that Dominic Calvert-Lewin can make. He also goes on to say that the Gunners are long-term admirers of Lille forward Jonathan David, who is expected to move in the summer and have good relations with League One club, having done business with them when it came to Pepe and Gabriel. So I think that's an interesting one because again, Jonathan David is very, very different than Dominic Calvert-Lewin and Dusan Vlahevich. I would say that Jonathan David is, to me, I thought he's similar to Balogun. I think that they're the similar lower center of gravity, stocky, strong, fast, and can kind of do a little bit of the buildup, can play out wide, can also play centrally, and is a little bit of it's like a better version of Ollie Watkins. That's pretty much what I think, so it's interesting that we're linked with him again. I remember when we were linked with him originally, and I thought it's just too early. And just 2 seasons later, he's an option again. And so I think that this is kind of an eye to Lacazette and Aubameyang leaving. So Dominic Calvert-Lewin would be somewhat of an Aubameyang, replacement, and Jonathan David would be more of a Lacazette change. Now, I don't know if this means that maybe at some point we play two up top. I don't know. Also, with Lautaro Martinez, I thought it was strange that we were heavily linked with him. And we don't play two up top, and that's how you get the best out of him. So maybe that's an eye to a way that we're going to be playing. Maybe we are going to stick with a 4-4-1-1 type of thing where one of the strikers stays kind of beneath and they play off of each other, kind of like how we're playing now. I don't know, but it's interesting to see the different profiles that we're being linked with. He also goes on to talk about Dusan Vlahevich, but if you haven't seen it already, Fabrizio Romano basically has said that he has no interest in coming to Arsenal. And so that makes the deal very, very difficult. It makes it impossible. He doesn't want to come to Arsenal. He's heavily linked with Spurs. He's also linked with Man City. I think he's looking for to either play under a certain type of manager or to play in a team that is fighting for titles and is in Champions League, and that doesn't include Arsenal at the moment. So I think we're pretty much, even though we probably have the money to get that deal done, I just don't think we're the club that he wants to go to at the moment. So that makes it a little bit difficult to do. So yeah, but it looks like we're starting to move in that direction. And when it comes to, I'm seeing that, maybe one of the strikers that we have in Lacazette and Aubameyang, maybe one of them are gonna leave soon, and maybe even in January. So I think if I had to guess between striker and midfielder, I think the striker would come um, in January because I think that the club is prepared to go through the season with Granit Xhaka and Thomas Partey and Sambi. Let's see what you guys are saying. Uh, Tony says, "Where's the toothpaste getting stuck in midfield? Ergo, center mid panic buy." Um, yeah, I think the midfield is a huge issue, but it always has been, and we never really quite address it. I don't really understand why the midfield always seems like a less of a priority when the game is literally won and lost, and our games are usually won and lost in midfield. We can always look at the opportunities that even like Nketiah and Aubameyang got against Everton, but what I saw was, did Zenit just score? Yes, so they're drawing right now, but what I saw was an inability to move through the thirds because our midfield was basically non-existent, just like they were against Man United. So I think having a functional midfield will help us get more out of our strikers. But it seems like the club is more desperate to get rid of the older, aging strikers. And maybe that has something to do with them being so senior and influential. And it just doesn't seem like Arteta is interested in making it work with the two of them. Let's see. Um, Dave FC says Vlahovic is by far the best choice. He's literally the next best thing after Holland. Doesn't look like we're going to be getting him at all. Basically, when a player says that they're not interested in you at all, it's difficult. It doesn't. You can see that it's not going to be about wages or being in London. He's a young, in-demand striker, and he probably doesn't want to play for a team that's not in Europe. And then we also don't have the type of manager that's going to be able to attract a player like that. So, I mean, the truth stings sometimes, but that's the game, isn't it? Leopold says our summer editions are doing well so far. Yeah, they are doing well. I think it could be that the players that we brought in are definitely players that we needed, and the summer transfer window makes a lot of sense, but we also know that we needed more, and the issues that we're having in the striker position and the center midfielder position, we know that, like, we knew that there were gonna be issues. I just don't think maybe the club anticipated it hurting us this quickly. Nobody anticipated Granit Xhaka being out for so long. Nobody anticipated, I don't think, Aubameyang and Lacazette being able to literally not score any goals at all. So I think that's why they're looking to fix it now. But um, we're already halfway through the season, almost halfway through the season. Colby said, when we played 3-4-3 and counterattacking, Abba was thriving, being able to run in behind. I mean, we kind of spoke about that yesterday. Um, that when you don't play to somebody's strengths, it's going to be really difficult to get their buy-in, especially when they're a striker. Strikers are usually really selfish and all about themselves, and that's not a dig at Aubameyang. But if you play to his strengths, you'll get more out of him, and that helps the team because he's the captain. So you're asking him to be a part of build-up and set up goals for Saka and ESR, and that's a hard ask. So I think there could be a little bit of, like, if Arteta was different, I think that he would stick with the system in the short term that gets the most out of the attackers that he has. He's chose to go in a different direction and maybe make make it obvious to the board and to Adu and the Cronkies that these are not the players that I want and I'm unwilling to compromise. I want them out. I want something different. It is what it is, you know. Dave FC says, Jess, Liverpool need a striker, so there's a possibility they might go for Vlahovic, especially if Haaland goes to City. I mean, wherever he goes, he will end up going to a club that has Champions League football or a manager that he rates, So it could end up being Man City, it could be Liverpool, it could be Spurs, it could be Juventus, So I just know he's not coming here. Mary Chris says, Jonathan David, kind of hope Lille choke in Champions League today so Adu can go get him from Lille. Chelsea definitely shocking today. They've been falling apart a little bit lately. Not completely falling apart, but they're going through an interesting run of form. So yeah, those are like the initial strikers that, we know we're linked with Calvert-Lewin. We know that we're interested in Vlahovic, but it's probably not going to happen. And then Jonathan David is this kind of out there choice that doesn't really fit. It doesn't not really in line of a target striker, but he's a little bit more Lacazette to me, which is really interesting, especially because we have Balogun and I feel like they're quite similar. So it's interesting. But yeah, the next person that we're going to be talking about is, let's see. Let's go with the midfield for a second. So, let me read some of these comments. Yo-Yo says Arsenal were already turned down by Locatelli and Awar. Beggars can't be choosers. Yeah, I mean, we're losing our shine. Like that's the one thing is that a couple of years ago, even with Europa League, we were still able to attract really good players. We're just kind of falling away a little bit, and you can kind of see that um, we're just not as attractive as we used to be. We're still a big club and we can still attract good players, but without European football, I think it's going to be very difficult to convince people to buy into a project that's built around a young players and a young manager when you're sitting mid-table, or close to mid-table. So we need to look serious sooner rather than later. That being said, we don't need I don't think we need world-class players per se. I think at the very minimum, we need 2 players to come in to kinda complete Arteta's team so that either everything clicks in place and we can kinda see where we go from there, or those 2 players come in and it doesn't look like it's coming to fruition, and then the club can make a decision. That's just kinda how I feel about it now because if the 2 players come in and we still kinda look the same, then there's nowhere to look but Arteta, but according to, you know, I would not even say according to anybody. I just feel like there is a feeling that once the striker and the midfielder come in, everything will click. And if that's the case, then we need to get those players sooner rather than later. Tony, no Isaac talk. I haven't seen very much about him recently. And so if anything comes up, we'll definitely talk about him again. I really like him, but I just feel as though yeah, I'm not sure if we're really, really interested in him, you know what I mean? He's gonna be really expensive and he's really raw still. T says the 3 strikers we should get are Jonathan David, Richarlison, forget uh DCL. I don't know. I mean, that's fair enough. Jonathan David is somebody that I would look at. Um, because he could give you that really sprinty style that we don't really have at the moment. He can press. We need players that can press and put players under pressure. We have too many people that just want to kind of, hi, I'm here. Hey, I'm there. I'm kind of here. I'm kind of pressing. I'm kind of here. We need more intensity. We need players that are going to just force their way into it. And I think Jonathan David is just a better version of Ollie Watkins. I don't think Ollie Watkins is that good, but I think Jonathan David is similar in that way where he puts defenders under threat. And we just have too many people that just are kind of like, here I am. What's what a Dominic Calvert-Lewin doesn't press very much either, to be honest. So interesting. Tawanda says Zachariah over Sanchez. So rumors circulating about Renato Sanchez again, that we have gotten the green light to make a move for Renato Sanchez for 25 million, 30 million, whatever. I do not understand the hype about this player. Like, I really don't. I get that he's good on the ball. He's a decent ball progressor, and he looks really good on compilations because he's really skillful. He's one of those kind of players that has sauce. It's one of those. But the guy is so brittle. He's made of glass. He's always a stretch away from being on the stretcher. I mean, I just can't see him hacking it in the Premier League, and he's been in the Premier League before. He kind of didn't work out at Bayern Munich. He came to Swansea. He was okay, and I just don't understand where the hype around this player is coming from. He's still young. He's still 23, but do we need another player that we're kind of looking at and saying, "Okay, are they gonna become something, or should we just go for somebody who's kind of already there and would solve a problem immediately?" I don't know if Renato Sanchez really solves our creativity issues, goal scoring from midfield issues, defensive issues in midfield. I don't think he solves any of that. He's not a particularly great passer. He's not particularly good in defense. He doesn't score goals. If you go look at his statistics, he really doesn't score a lot of goals. He's just the type of player for me that looks really good on compilations, gets people excited, and then fails to really deliver um, where it really truly matters. And so I personally just don't see why people are so obsessed with this player. I just don't get it. I think it's because we don't have enough flashy players. We don't have enough players that really get you excited. He's just another Alan St. Maximum type player to me, and I just don't feel like you want to spend 30 million on that. You could give that to Lyon and take Bruno Guimaraes off of their hands, take Awar off of their hands. But why would we go to Lille and take a player that doesn't solve any of our issues, really? I have real issues with this player. Not only do I think he's not that great in terms of what he can offer you in terms of the statistics that really matter, but he's also extremely brittle. And so I don't really get it, but hey, I don't like him. um let's see. What do you guys think about Renato Sanchez? Do you guys think that he solves our issues in midfield? I know he's somebody that can help you get into that midfield three. He's the type of player that, can be a part of a midfield three that's like three eights essentially in there. Um, but I'm just wondering, first of all, we don't have a six. We don't have a traditional number six that can kind of sit in a lone pivot. So I still feel like we're a player shy of actually being able to play in a midfield three. He would be a piece of that puzzle. But again, that guy is so brittle. Like, ooh, no, that guy is horrendous. Ah, let's see. Dave says, "You're still looking for another injury merchant in Sanchez. Haven't learned your lesson after Party." I mean, I don't want him. So, and this is somebody who, Thomas Partey, we never knew that he was going to have these injury issues because his injury report was clean. Like, it was clean before he came to Arsenal. He rarely got injured at Atletico. This guy has the longest injury record I've ever seen, and I still see Arsenal fans pining for this dude, and I just don't get it. And I think it's because he looks good on compilations. That's the only thing I can really think of, and he has sauce. Like, that's it. And we don't need sauce. We don't need sauce. Um, Yo-Yo says, "Going back to Lille smells of unimaginative work by Edu. Pepe and Gabriel were Raul-led transfers, according to the reports back then." Yeah, I mean, I think it's a good little if you wanna go to Lille, please go and they have good recruitment. Like, that's what I will say about Lille. They do have good recruitment, and they at least they did before. But what I will say is that, like, that is not the player that you leave Lille with. You know, he's so obviously wants to leave Lille that I feel like he's forcing it. And so that's not somebody that I would want to bring to Arsenal because again, he just doesn't solve many of our issues. And so no, no. Um, let's see. Let's see. Cahabo says Sanchez is very good in transition, but defensively he is not solid. Guimaraes is an all-arounder I'd want at Arsenal. I mean, if we're talking about eights, which Bruno Guimaraes, he can play in the sixth role, but that's not really like what I feel like is his best role. I think if you want a workhorse like midfield, something like a Liverpool midfield, you'd want somebody like Bruno Guimaraes and hopefully a fit Thomas Party with a number six that can sit there and do the rest. You know, Bruno Guimaraes is somebody who he may not look as good on compilations, but he does the things that actually matter in midfield. He can progress the ball. He's just as good of a ball progressor as Renato Sanchez, but he's more defensively solid. His passes into the final third are much better. He's much more complete. So I feel like what is the point of Renato Sanchez? Like I really don't get it. But Guimaraes is who I would go after if I'm looking for somebody to play as an eight or in a double pivot with another six. You know, that's what I would go for. Let's see. What about Guendouzi? Guendouzi ain't coming back. Zhang says, yeah, he's injury prone and will play 10 games this season, but he has nice hair. I mean, yeah, it's just, yeah, it's a no for me. So Denis Zakaria is obviously linked with us as well. This is a player that when we were originally looking for an 8/6. I didn't like him as much as I like Thomas Party. Maybe the joke is on me, but he is a good player and he's going to be free in the summer. You know, but the issue with having somebody who's going to be on a free is being able to outbid the teams like Bayern Munich that will like inevitably be interested in him, Juventus that'll be interested in him, Liverpool that'll be interested in him. So I don't know if we really will be able to get it over the line. I know the reports are saying that we're in constant contact with his agents and stuff like that. So I think we have a chance, but at the same time, like it's about what can we offer him that the other teams cannot. And without Champions League football, it's going to be super, super difficult to convince a 24-year-old, somebody who is in their prime, to sign up to a team that maybe potentially doesn't even have Europe. Or if they do, it's Europa League. So, but this is a player that would enable us to kind of become more of a 4-3-3 team. If you're not really like geeked up to have Zachariah and Thomas Party in a midfield pivot because it's too defensive. You can think like past the next couple of years when we eventually maybe move away from Thomas Party being our main midfielder. Dennis Zachariah can sit in a single pivot by himself, flanked by two number eights, which is what a lot of Arsenal fans want to see. So he would be able to do that for you. Is he the best on the market? No, he is not. Obviously, I think Basuma is better than him, and I think Chouameni is somebody who's probably better than him, but he's free and he fits the profile. So that's kind of what I think. It's a market opportunity that if we could take advantage of, I think the club would want to, and he is the type of player that we would need. What I do like about him is that he's athletic, he's physical, he's somebody that I feel like could keep up with the pace of the Premier League. He's not a great passer. So people that are looking for somebody like a Rodri will be disappointed, but I think he's closer to a Fabinho than a Rodri, so that's kind of I'm not saying he is Fabinho, I'm just saying he's not going to be dictating play from the deepest point in midfield. That's all I'm saying. So for a free, that is somebody that I would look at. And I would say if you're looking at Renato Sanchez, somebody who's a sick note and is always, just a stretch away from just being like out of commission for months, I think I would go for the free option in Denis Zakaria. Now, that's not the only midfielder that we need. We know we need somebody else, somebody like an Awar or another Bruno Guimaraes or somebody like that. But that would get us a step closer to having a more solid midfield, and it also will give us an opportunity to move away from Granit Xhaka. So that is a rumor that I do like, but I do want to know what you guys think about the midfield. We've already kind of spoken about strikers, so if you're asking about strikers now, it's we kind of spoke about that at the beginning of the show, but right now it's just more we're talking about the midfielders. I do agree with Zich that it's the perfect replacement for El Neni. Um, El Neni will be gone. I did put together a list of all the players that are going to be leaving at the end of the season slash in January, and it's a lot. Like it's like 6 players or so I think that could potentially be on the way out. A lot of them because their contracts will be up. Lacazette, Nketiah, I think Callum Chambers, El Neni, and there's like a couple more, I think, or at least and then we know for sure Guendouzi is going to be gone, potentially Torreira. So there are some positions to fill in, and Zachariah would be a good replacement for El Neni, but wouldn't really like block anything moving forward. In terms of like he's not somebody that I feel like you need to build your midfield around, if that makes sense. Let's see. Uh, Tawanda says Basuma will probably end like Party if we sign him. I'm very skeptical about him. Are you guys completely done with Thomas Party? I see a lot of like comments about Thomas Party, not necessarily from you, Tawanda, but like almost as if this is final. This form is final. There's no way that he'll improve. We need to sell him on. He's done at Arsenal. This is his second season, and we know that he was pretty much injured the whole first one. So I just want to know what you guys think. Are you guys done with Thomas Party? Is there no, confidence that he'll be able to come out of this form and be better? What do you guys kind of think about that? Because I see a lot of comments as if it's over, and I'm not quite sure. I believe that Thomas Party is finished at Arsenal and it's all done. Which I feel like some people feel like that already and wanna get rid of him. I've seen some people say it's time to sell him, and I think that's just a little trigger happy. Kunte says, "I prefer Mark Roca or Fabian Ruiz. My issue with the 2 of them is when we were originally linked with Mark Roca." Well, first of all, he gets, like, 0 playing time at Bayern Munich, doesn't he? But, when we were originally linked with him, I found him to be eerily similar to Granit Xhaka in every way, shape, and form. And for me, I'd like to move away from that profile altogether. Fabian Ruiz is somebody that I like, but I have huge questions around whether he would be able to adapt to the Premier League if he's not playing for Pep. There's just some players that I'm not quite sure if they would be able to get up to the speed. We see that it's very difficult. Players like Saul, players like Thomas Partey, even when Thiago first came to the Premier League, really, really struggled with the pace and the physicality. So I wonder if Fabian Ruiz would be able to get up to speed with that. But they kind of are more in the Rodri deep lying playmaker type role, I think. More so Mark Roca than Fabian Ruiz, which is completely different than I personally want. But there's nothing wrong with those players. Those are good shouts still. Yo-Yo says, not convinced Arteta wants 4-3-3. Otherwise, he would have never signed Tomiyasu after seeing what Heki B did last season. Um, I think Arsenal fans really want the 4-3-3. I'm not sure that will ever become that. I think we are a 4-2-3-1 side until I see otherwise. We don't have true number eights, all around number eights. We have a bunch of tens and defensive midfielders primarily, or double pivot midfielders at the moment. So I'm not convinced yet either, Yo-Yo, but things can always change. So we'll see what happens with that. Um, let's see. Ahmed says Luis Diaz, Grimareich, Isak, Riddle Baku, and Zachariah are my choices for the summer. That's a lot of choices. I think. Can I be honest with you guys? I think we signed a striker probably in January and one midfielder in the summer, and we say that's it. I don't really think we're going to go into the next transfer window and bring in three or four more players. I think we're probably going to get about two, max. You know, Tony says, my party sentiment is that party needs to show up. He does his 4 out of 10 interview and lays another stinker. He's great, but hasn't shown to be a midfield leader. No. And if you guys listen to the most recent Arsenal Vision, I think it was the post match podcast. Clive said he finds it really strange how many of our senior players decide to throw themselves into a hole when they go into bad form. So instead of standing up and letting it roll off of their back and starting anew, they kind of go further into a pit of despair. And I feel like Thomas Partey did that interview and then continued to have, he didn't come out like somebody who was determined to change it around. He looked like somebody that was willing to go deeper into that hole. And that's really worrying because that, for me, that's mindset. And that's not good. That's not good. Um, O'Malley says there are a lot of good free players this summer, and we are getting rid of a lot of wages. Kunte says Arteta could have all the world class players he wants, including prime Messi, prime Ronaldinho, prime Henri, and would still perform abysmally. Um, I guess this is kind of my overwhelming feeling is that the faster he gets his team, ideally we'll be able to see how good of a coach Arteta actually is. It's hard to figure it out because right now we're saying it's potentially the players and it's potentially him. We don't really know. He doesn't have his perfect team yet. And so I think there's some fans that are kind of holding back from too much criticism because we know Aubameyang needs to be moved on. We know we're midfielder short. We know we really struggle in the midfield, that kind of thing. So the faster he gets those players, the more clear it'll become whether or not he's the manager that we really need going forward. And I still think it is at this moment could go either way, but is definitely inconclusive. I think that's fair enough to say that he could still improve. I don't know to what level he can still improve, or things could get worse, but nobody really knows definitively because I don't think there's enough evidence to show that. I think more of the evidence kind of leans towards he may not be the guy, but again, I'm open to a striker and a midfielder coming in and maybe that just making everything click together. I don't know, yeah. Um, Twisted says Arteta won titles as a number 2. He can't be that bad. I know you're being funny there. Soko says I don't see us buying a striker in January. In January, hope I am wrong. I think we might get someone on loan and hopefully get DCL in the summer. Um, I just fear that like whatever loan signing we try to go for will not have enough of an impact, and if we wait until the summer, it may be too late in terms of European football. Um, that top 6 race is so, so difficult, and we pretty much we we took away our ability to be chased and to kind of run away with it. We gave the advantage to our rivals and they're improving. That's not to say that they won't have slip ups in the season coming, like going as the season progresses. But what I am saying is that like once you give up the opportunity to go forth and then you give up the opportunity to get into the top 6 again and then you decide okay, you guys go in front and we'll just chase you. I have not seen Arteta really be able to get the team to overtake anybody when the time was presented. So I think it's difficult, but when you see West Ham, United, and Spurs, unfortunately, there's four teams, if you include us, fighting for 2 spots, I think, 3 spots, the fourth, fifth, and sixth spot. So somebody will miss out. And that is Also dependent on whether or not other teams below us get better. We know that Aston Villa is starting to hit a little bit of form. Wolves are starting to hit a little bit of form. Who knows what's going to happen with Leicester? So I fear that if we wait into the summer, um, then we'll be outside of Europe again. That'll hurt our chances of getting our top targets, and we will still not have the ability to get players good playing time that are not playing in the Premier League. I don't think we can afford to be outside of Europe more than 1 year. And it's also not helping us in terms of winning games more, like winning more games. A lot of the argument for being outside of Europe was that we weren't gonna have to rotate as much, and we weren't gonna be we were gonna be able to play our starting lineup, and we would have an advantage. The teams that are playing in Europe are playing better than us, so it's a little bit strange that we haven't seen any sort of jump in terms of that. So yeah, I think it's a slippery slope, but we'll see. Sitch says, I don't see any major changes in January. A lot was spent in the summer, and another striker and a midfielder feel like summer signings with all the outgoings. Yeah, it just might be too late. Alitia says, I think the most important transfer might just be a sports psychologist for this team. The party interview was indicative of a mentally psychology problem in the team, or just Arteta should cheer. You know, I wonder about our backroom staff and if we're doing enough. I wonder about our fitness. I do, like you, worry about the psychology of our players. And Odegaard came out and said that he feels like this is a mentality issue, and it may not be something that Arteta can help us with. He is trying to instill his ideas, manage the team, and get results in a difficult period. So does he actually also have time to deal with like maybe the low confidence players, the players that are kind of really struggling? And so as a new coach, I feel like he's mostly focused on trying to instill his ideas and get results, but there's other parts of the job that maybe specialists can come in and do that maybe he can't do. So I do worry about that the mentality is not right. Um, we don't know when's the right time to take players out of the team. I think with somebody like Thomas Partey, who's clearly in a bad state, he might need to be taken out of the firing line. But I worry that we'll just keep playing him, and it just won't get any better. So we'll see what happens. But I do worry about our backroom staff and if we are actually supporting the players well enough, especially when it comes to the psychological aspect and our fitness. I don't think we're fit enough to press at the level that we should be. And I think that's why we just decide not to do it. We did not press at all against Everton, and I found that really strange. Um, Ka- Ka- Kahabo says, we sell a lot of players though. We need to fill these spots up. Potential players leaving: Aubameyang, Laka, Nketiah, Balogun, Elneny, Kolasinac. That was the other person. Chambers, Suarez, Leno, Pepe, Ainsley Maitland-Niles. Yeah, no, I hear that. I'm just not sure that I believe that, like, we're going to bring in 4 more players this summer. I think it'll be 1 or 2. And then also remember that every summer we have this big long list of players that we want to get rid of, and inevitably nobody wants them, or we decide not to sell them because we want to hold on to them and hope that their value increases. So players that like Torreira, who we still need to hope that Fiorentina buys, which it looks like they may, but you never really know. Bellerin, he's not gone, he's on loan. Ainsley Maitland-Niles, like, will we actually sell him or will we keep him again? Cedric Suarez, I don't think his deal is quite up. We ended up keeping Kolasinac, somebody who we thought was out the door, and he's still here. So we always have these really long lists, but it never really happens like that. So besides the guys that are going to naturally leave, which is like Lacazette and Ketia, Balogun, Elneny, and Kolasinac, and Chambers. Aubameyang, we have to find a buyer. Somebody has to want to buy Suarez. Somebody has to want to buy Pepe. So ideally, we always want to get rid of all the players, but we never really do we? So the last little bit of transfer rumors that I do want to talk about is Pablo Mari. Oh yeah, here is Pablo Mari. So essentially, like, basically the rumor is that he's unhappy with his lack of playing time, and Flamengo is interested in taking him on loan for a year. Yeah. So I just want to say shame to every Arsenal fan who claimed last season that they thought Pablo Marie was better than Gabriel. Shame on you. That guy is probably a decent enough backup in some scenarios, but there were some games where I watched him and I just thought to myself, I don't think he's up to the level. And like a backup is obviously not always going to be as good as your starter, but I had huge questions on whether he was good enough to play in the Premier League at all. Just some of the things that he did, I'm just thinking to myself, I'm like, how do we end up with this guy? And he was another Raul signing, somebody else who was on the list of some agent that he knew, and that's how we end up with Cedric and Pablo Marie, and now Marie wants playing time all of a sudden. He hasn't played since like some of them first games that we played, and I think it's important to move somebody like this on as well, because if we want Saliba to come back, he has to have a spot. And so I wouldn't be sad to see Pablo Marie go, but it's just another one of those signings where you're like, what was the point of that? But Pop says, just do you think Pablo Marie, Cedric will leave in January? They are Arteta players. I think Pablo Marie will go, but it might be like, on a loan. Nobody's gonna buy him, I don't think Flamingo's gonna buy him back from us. We had so much drama getting him to Arsenal anyway from Flamingo, which is really strange. Cedric, I'm not sure. We gave him, like, a 4-year deal. So and he's not on huge wages, but he hasn't played. So I have this weird feeling that Cedric might still be here, but I think Pablo Marie will go, so, we'll see what happens with that, but it's interesting because we know that those signings, they didn't smell right, did they? Because they came from Raul, and some of his buddies, so not surprised that they haven't really worked out really, but we'll see. Let's see. Twisted said, Jess, what are Arteta's key strengths? Communication in terms of how he explains things. I think one thing that the Arsenal fan base really liked about him when he first came in was that they felt like they understood what he was saying. He talks a good game, and that's not to be negative, but most managers that are good talk a good game, so not being able to really connect with Unai Emery in that way and having somebody come in who could easily explain to us what he was trying to do or what he wants to be able to do at Arsenal, I think was a huge thing. So his communication skills are quite good. But a lot of the other things that I feel like were supposed to be strengths of his, like coaching young players up. I don't feel like I've seen enough of that to say that that's a key strength of his. I think he struggles sometimes with the man management side of things. And so I struggle to really name a lot of key strengths from him at the moment. We can't really say tactically he's doing an amazing job. Um yeah, that's a difficult question to answer. Yo-Yo says, if you were KSE, would you give Arteta more money this January, having already spent the most in Europe in the last window? Not really. I mean, okay, so this is how I think of it. If I'm KSE, they're gonna back him. So I think he has a relationship with Josh where he could say, you know what, I really am just not really feeling Aubameyang and Lacazette. I need a new striker. Um, blah 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 blah, and they'll give him the money to get the striker now because I think we are at a point where there is a disconnect between the senior strikers and Arteta to the point where we're not getting the most out of them, but we're also unwilling to change anything to get the best out of them. So there's a gap there, and I don't think it's not going to change at all this season. So Arteta needs the striker sooner or the toxicity will get bigger, so I think that if I was KSE and we just spent all this money, I would say you need to get into the European spots, meaning Europa League and higher with what you have now. But the message that I'm getting from KSC and Arteta is that they are backing him to instill some sort of system that he wants to, regardless if he has the players or not to do it. And what comes first is Arteta installing the system over getting the most out of the players that he has. And I think that that is conscious from everybody. From KSC, it's okay. From Arteta, it's okay. And so I think they will give him the money. But if I was KSC, I would not. I would say you need to get the best out of Aubameyang because we re-signed him while you were here. Um, and so you kind of need to work with what you got. We also re-signed Granite under your watch, so no new midfielder, no new striker. This is what you got. You have to get something out of this group. Because there has to be some, okay, well, we gave you some money. You were able to coach these players up. You were able to make the right decisions and get results I mean, Arteta has spent at least 250 million so far, so there has to be some work with what you got, show us that you can coach it up. But I think he's enough in the Cronkies. He's close enough to the Cronkies where he can convince them that the system doesn't work unless he gets more money and more players. That's what I truly think. Mm, Kahabo says it's season defining that we get our attack running with the new signings in January. I mean, it is, but at the same time, if we don't get it, we're gonna have these issues because there's nobody's budging. I don't even think it's so much that Lacazette and Aubameyang should budge. I feel like the system genuinely does not suit any of our more senior attackers, Lacazette, Pepe, or Aubameyang, and in some respects, Martinelli. So we pretty much thrown away a big chunk of our attackers. Everybody else is super young and not really going to give us so many. They're not going to give us a lot of goals. So the only way that it works without having to buy new players is Arteta decides to play in a way that suits them more, and that's not going to happen. He spent over a year playing a system that does not support them, so now I don't see him being 6 months away from getting rid of most of them to change now, and that's what we have to suffer with. Um, you know? So that's kind of how I feel about it. Lionide says the January window will be about getting rid of the non-essentials, maybe one loan with options to buy. I mean, maybe that's where the Kuleveski comes in. We wanted a loan with an option for him. I'm not sure how he helps us. Um, I'm not sure how he helps us. I don't see how bringing in another winger um really improves what we're trying to do at the moment. He hasn't really scored a lot of goals at Juventus. I know he scored more goals wherever he was before that. Um, I don't know how Kuleveski would help us, but maybe that's where that comes in. So and then who drops to the bench then? Because if he plays right wing slash left wing slash creative midfielder, who's going to drop? Saka, ESR, we can't just bring in somebody just for the sake of it. That's why I feel like it's almost smarter to move one of those key signings forward. You may not want to, but I mean, it may not be the same effect, but I remember when Manchester United brought in Bruno Fernandez, and as annoying as he is, they brought him in January instead of waiting until the summer because they were so far off of it that they probably wouldn't have been able to attract him anymore had they waited. And so it saved their season. And players can do that for you if that's all you need is just one player to really get things to click. And I feel like a big club does that. I feel like Arsenal will take the the easy way out and just say we're going to deal with what we have, maybe do a loan is what it is. Um, um Yo-Yo says Arteta was initially hired off of his based off of his coaching, and now he gets to splurge his way out of a mess that he created. I argued from the get-go we needed a Klopp type, not a Pep type. Yeah, exactly. And that's what I'm saying is like I don't feel like I see enough emphasis on what is he doing with the players that he already has. A good coach would not just shove Aubameyang, Lacazette, and Pepe to the curb and say, "I'm gonna play in a system that doesn't suit any of them because I'm just gonna wait into the summer until they buy me new players." I feel like that just it reeks of safety in your position, but it also reeks of hubris as well. So for me, it's kind of like I would prefer somebody who's a real coach that is not just trying to sit up there and wait for world class players to come in to play a system because he needs meticulous profiles that are perfect with so much quality. I feel like I would prefer somebody who can look at the group that we have and get the most out of it. Um, and we kind of have the opposite. And that's not shade to Arteta. I think that's just how he's going to be as a manager. Is he kind of is more of a Pep than a Klopp, and he's not getting the most out of the group that he has, in my opinion. Um, let's see. Ivy says, since the second international break, we lost our confidence. Why is that? I think if I had to guess, and this is all speculation, that the foundation that we had built up until that point was not solid. Um, our underlying metrics for that period of that unbeaten streak was not did not it wasn't convincing, and so I thought the Liverpool match shook the fan base, and I also think it shook the confidence of the players a little bit as well. Because when you get slapped, it's hard, you know? Um, and we just don't have those characters not on the sideline and not on the pitch that can put their arm around, our players and get them through a away day at Anfield, away day at Old Trafford, away day at Goodison. Those are three really difficult away day fixtures where if you don't have any leaders in your team, you're going to have a difficult time. So I feel like just the bad results kind of like one on top of another and just nobody that can really just instill that confidence in the group. There's the foundation was already kind of rocky. Um, I think it showed us how we weren't really as secure as we thought we were, in that 10 game period because I rarely see teams get one loss, even if it's a bad loss, and just everything just kind of tanks after that. Um, it's weird, but our confidence just went right down the toilet. Um, let's see. AK Gunner says our attack has never been good under Arteta. We were more offensive under Emery and it's quite alarming. Um, yeah. Hey Gal. Gal says, hey, thoughts on fellow Canadian Jonathan David to Arsenal. Yeah. Kind of talked about it a little bit earlier, but I think he would be a good Lacazette replacement if Balogun is not like ready to go, which I don't think he is. Maybe he needs 1 or 2 years in a loan. I think he's interesting because he would give us somebody that could press from the front, and I think he's just a better version of Ollie Watkins. And those type of players just put they put the defense under pressure, and I just don't think we have enough players that run and sprint and press, and he's doing really well right now, and we wanted him before, so, um, I do really like him, I feel like we still need somebody a little bit more physical inside the box, like a bigger, taller striker, but, as a Lacazette replacement, I think he's perfectly fine. So, um, let's see. Matt Cook says the most important part of a team is the spine. Our spine isn't there yet, in my opinion. Defense is very good, but midfield and center forward seriously lacking. Two top class center midfielders needed, and time to lose Aubameyang and Lacazette, in my opinion. Um, yeah, I mean, I cannot disagree with that at all. I think our defense is good, but because the center midfield leaves them basically exposed, in every difficult game away from home. Um, we need midfielders that are just tougher, stronger, better, um, braver, you know, um, and then lose Aubameyang and Lacazette, which I think they're very close to being gone. I think Lacazette is obviously going to leave because of his contractual situation, but I wouldn't be surprised if Aubameyang left, you guys. I mean, I just have this weird feeling that there's just something there, and it doesn't mean that they got it. There's a big blow up or anything like that, but I just feel like with the rumors of Dominic Calvert-Lewin and Jonathan David, that kind of speaks to me because the the profiles are so different that we're looking for different options based on whatever person leaves. That's what it looks like to me. Um, CU says, "Hi Jess. Hey CU. On playing style identity side of things, do you think that we should become more of a possession team like City or pressing like Liverpool?" Well, City is one of the best pressing teams in the league as well. They do both. And I would say that Liverpool is a possession based team as well. So I feel like you kind of have to have both. I think there's this misconception that Pep is all possession and Klopp is all like, go, 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 press, press, press. They both do both, so I think that they play differently, but they both have possession and they both have pressing. And I think in order to dominate the game and dictate the play, you have to have possession. And then pressing teams into mistakes is a very underrated way of creating chances that a lot of teams across Europe are using that for some reason like Arteta slash Arsenal have just fallen behind the curve. Some of it has to do with us not having players up front that can initiate the press. We saw from minute one Arteta was screaming at Lacazette minute 1 to press, and he was already dead on his feet. There are times in the games where he's screaming at Aubameyang to press, and it all starts from the front. I also look at Emile Smith-Rowe and Bukayo Saka, and I think to myself, are you pressing for pressing's sake, or are you pressing to win the ball? Martinelli is the only player that I feel like that we have at the moment that looks to me like he could do a high press for a significant amount of time. So some of it is personnel, and then when it comes to the possession part of it, um, possession, it's technical ability, which I think that we do have, but a lot of it is confidence, under pressure, being able to figure out what the right decision is. I watched a video of Ajax passing around the other day, or this morning, and I thought to myself, they weren't the passing patterns weren't much different than ours are, but the two differences that I saw was one, there was a reason why they were doing that because eventually once they got to a point where they had opened up space, that person flew into the next spot, like they moved from their position into the next to take advantage of the space that had been opened, and then they tried to attack the goal. Sometimes I think we just pass for passing's sake. We don't actually know when the moment is to actually initiate the attack. And then also, their passing was 1-2 touch, 1-2 touch, 1-2 touch. Our passing is touch it, turn around, pass. Touch it, turn around, pass. So I feel like we can be a possession team if we do it better. And then, but the pressing part of it, I think we lack the personnel to do it, if I'm honest, So I think we need to be both in order to be a really good team in this league. But we're lacking a lot of elements to make it successful. Um, I'll retweet it when I get off of here and show you guys. I mean, the only difference was that obviously they weren't under as much pressure as we are in the Premier League. We know that, but it was Ajax versus Dortmund. Dortmund are horrific in terms of defending, but what I noticed was it was just like 1-2 touch. Their patterns weren't much different than ours, but once they shifted the other team onto the other side and then they got them off balance, it was like there was a trigger to start the attack. And so their right back overlapped into space. The right winger didn't cut in and find a midfielder. They found the gap to find the winger or the right back, cross into the goal. Like I feel like we missed the trigger. We missed the trigger to do the attack, so we just end up going back and around in circles. It's weird. But I think we need to be both, but we lack a lot to be both. Um, so yeah. But you guys, I guess it's time for I guess they're already on. Barcelona and Bayern Munich are what is the score of that game so far? Can you believe Barcelona might end up in in the Europa League. I mean, that's rich coming from us, but I can't say that I feel bad. It's still 0-0 so far. So I'm going to go ahead and watch the rest of that game. But I hope you guys enjoyed the show. If you guys missed the talk about the strikers, it was at the beginning of the show. Make sure you guys get into the comment section and let me know what you guys thought. Like the video, subscribe to the channel, share this with a friend, and I will be back tomorrow. See you guys next time. Bye.